Hi there, and welcome to Ancestral Recall. I'm your host, Eli Kaplan. This is a Magic series that seeks to map out 20 years of the game's history. Today's part 6 of a 7-part series on the very first sets of Magic, Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited. Why listen to my stories? Because Magic history is not the easiest thing to come by 20 years later, that's why. This is green. Green has many faces. At times, it smiles with a nurturer's gaze, granting the blessings of Gaia, providing food, community, and caring to those who seek out the shade of its branches. At other times, green is a rampaging force of destruction, ending the lives of those who would trespass in its realm. Green harbors no hate, no malice, but it is forever bound in the cycle of predator and prey, every moment of its existence fighting for growth to prevent rot. Do not try to trick or bait green, for when it stalks its quarry, it never shows quarter. You cannot negotiate with nature. Adapt or die. Those are your choices when you must struggle against green. Planeswalkers may wield immeasurable energies as they walk the plains, but they will always antagonize green mages because they simply don't know the territories that they trespass in. And green defends its territory to the death. There is no choice. That is its way. When we look at green's planeswalkers, there are two choices. Garruk, who has many incarnations, is the predator, the hunter, calling on beasts in a way that makes Aquaman look lame. Nissa started off as only caring about elves, but later on she experienced some character development and learned how to tap the power of forests like no other planeswalker, far more effectively than Garruk's original incarnation. As for creature types, well, the most famous example is green's trademark sentient race, elves. These humanoids live in the trees with their pointy ears, and are the tribe closest tied to mana production. There's also bears, badgers, thalids, insects, and elementals, Kabu, Nantico, Baelos, Loner Human Druids, Treefolk, and at the top of the curve, worms and hydras. Hydras are currently green's iconic fatty, though it took a long time for them to claw their way to the top. Green is the most diverse color when it comes to creature types, if not necessarily creature concepts. Green is most known as the color of mana acceleration. Channel is the best example. For 2 green, you can exchange life for colorless mana that turn. Now, the most infamous kill in Magic in the early days came from using Fireball or Disintegrate to burn out an opponent on turns 1 or 2. Simply get to 21 mana, aim spell at the opponent, done. The sad part of Channel was, it had virtually no practical use in green itself. There wasn't that much to do with all that mana. Channel was a major reason for green to work with red, in the elusive hopes of that turn 1 one-shot. That was the dream many players sought. Hell, there's even a website and store named after this elusive combo. But there were many other accelerants. 3 creatures could tap for mana. Llanowar Elves could tap for 1G or attack. Birds of Paradise, a card designed quickly when the art came back for tropical islands and had birds a little too prominently in the foreground, could tap for any color. Wild Growth made another land produce an additional G when tapped, and this comboed very nicely with Ley Druid, a 3-mana guy who could untap a land. Instill Energy in Aura let you untap a mana-producing creature, and also gave creatures haste. That was relevant. Now, this isn't really part of green's color pie today, being usurped by red to some degree and blue. Today, green also likes to search out lands into hand or into play, as in the case of Mirage's classic Rampant Growth. But it took a few years for green to learn how to diversify its mana production. Green was supposed to be the color of gigantic fatties, and yet at the time, it wasn't quite the case. Yes, green did have the creature with the single biggest stats, 8/8 with Force of Nature. But Force of Nature demanded 4 green mana every upkeep. That's pretty demanding. Green had the biggest common, Crawworm, and people loved Crawworm. It hit so hard, or it would trade with 2/3 drops. But Crawworm died to lots of common removal. And that was it. Nothing else in green broke the 4 power barrier. Okay, that isn't entirely true. Gaia's Leash could tap to transform opponents' lands into forests, and when it attacked, it used the number of forests the opponent controlled as its power and toughness. But that was it. Yes, over time, Gaia's Leash could turn anything into a range of forests, leashing away the land's utility, and it could eventually attack for a lot. But Gaia's Leash was a lousy threat, and when it got killed, all its forestation work was undone. Yeah, it's true, green had some very efficient common creatures. Grizzly Bear was a very efficient 2-drop. Giant Spider's 2/4 stats, along with Reach, held up for so long it was the last card to be taken out of the core set for a period. Woolly Mammoth had Trample, making it strictly better than Red's comparable Hill Giant. And for 5 mana, green had Ironwood Treefolk. 3/5 for 5 was truly prodigious at the time. Green also had Scribsprites, a 1/1 flyer for 1. Yeah, that was a card. In tempo-driven formats, Scribsprites were awesome. Another evasive creature was Shandon Dryads, a 1/1 Forest Walker, who occasionally saw play from players who were obsessed with early drops. The most popular green combo at the time involved Thicket Basilisk. Thicket Basilisk would destroy any non-wall creature it blocked or got blocked with at the end of combat. So the Basilisk could still die easily. Green mages tried to stop that with Regeneration. But the real combo piece was Lure, an enchantment that forced all of your opponent's untapped creatures to block the enchanted creature. Unlike today's Death Touch, the Basilisk didn't even have to damage its blockers to turn them to stone. There was also a flying version of Thicket Basilisk, Cockatrice, but Cockatrice was strictly inferior when lured, well, because most creatures couldn't block it. I enjoy the fact that green showed us that giving a creature an evasion ability sometimes made it worse. While every card with Death Touch shows a debt to Thicket Basilisk, my personal favorite version is Odyssey's Stone Tongue Basilisk. Because when you got Threshold, the Basilisk automatically got the Lure ability. So damn cool. Thicket Basilisk combo decks could persist through Lightning Bolts, Disintegrates, or Fireballs most of the time, but they fell apart when faced with Terror or Swords to Plowshares. This was true for all of Green's fatties, and really it's why Green failed to be dominant in many of Magic's earlier years. There were some other fascinating utility creatures in Green. Verdure and Enchantress provided an archetype of card advantage, turning every enchantment played into a draw. I remember early Japanese pro deck building genius Akira Asahara knocking me out of Day 2 contention of GP Sendai in 2001 with this creature. For defensive players, Timberwolf's banding ability could turn big, messy battlefields against big creatures' controllers. The banding simulated Wolf's pack mentality. And Fungasaur, well, if Fungasaur got damaged and lived, it would get bigger and bigger. Green mages used Regeneration, or on rare occasion Prodigal Sorcerer, to force this guy to grow. One thing that confounds me about green is that it is commonly seen as the attacking player's color. Green lives and dies in the red zone. And that's true for the most part. I mean, green historically needs to be in the red zone to win games. And yet, ABU confounds this premise by having green be the color of walls. Every other color has one or two. In fact, white, the most defensive color of them all, the color of city and civilization, gets only one wall, whereas green has three. Wall of wood, wall of brambles, and wall of ice lying green. Perhaps that reflects an idea in Richard Garfield's head that nature is full of impediments. But I'm just guessing here, though. Green could use auras to transform its little guys into big threats. Aspect of Wolf was fairly efficient in the late game and was very popular with green players. The usual target of choice for Aspect Wolf was Elvish Archers, who could use the permanent power boost most efficiently. Urza's Saga's Blanche with Armor, on the other hand, just made it obsolete. Web allows a creature to shot web? Giving 2 additional toughness for 1 green mana plus reach isn't too shabby. Green actually had more land destruction in ABU than any other color. The most notorious land destruction spell was Kudzu, an enchantment that jumped around the board, eating away lands as it went. This little scene effect got swapped later to red with Odyssey's Steam Vines. Now, since Wizards put Kudzu and many other ABU cards on the reprint list, keeping them from reprinting them with functional equivalents, they upgraded the functionality of the red version by causing damage every time a land was destroyed. Kudzu's pass the fun around feeling also inspired many other cards, such as Fallen Empire's Rainbow Veil, Legends Tackle Maggot, and Scourge's Corona. The set also had Ice Storm, a card title that sounds way more blue than green today. Ice Storm got later followed up with Tempest's Winter's Grasp and Vision's Creeping Mold, Of course, Creeping Mold got followed up with many other versatile variants such as Acidic Slime, so that it has its own, far more important legacy than Ice Storm. Historically, red has been the most dominant color in terms of land destruction when it comes to measuring tournament success, but green has been a close second for the game's history and was actually dominant in ABU. Fast Bond took a while for players to appreciate because at the time it came out there were many other forms of mana acceleration such as the Moxen, Sol Ring, and Black Lotus to exploit. Taking damage for extra land drops wasn't an appealing prospect, but eventually Legacy decks broke it open. My favorite card to use with Fast Bond is Stronghold's Horn of Greed, naturally. Green had a number of appealing combat tricks. Even the smallest Llanowar Elf could hit hard with Giant Growth, and Giant Growth could also effectively counter a lightning bolt aimed at one of your creatures. Berserk was immensely popular when paired with fire-breathing creatures or instants that pump power such as Giant Growth and Legends Bloodlust, spawning some of the most ferocious weenie decks outside white. My love for you is like a truck, Berserker. No, I'm not finishing that song. Camouflage is a bizarrely templated spell that allows you to play 3-card Monty with your attacks, making opponents guess blindly what and how to block. Now, if your opponent tries to make an illegal block, then the creature gets through. I like Camouflage's flavor, but I don't think this is great gameplay. These type of effects, dominating combat decisions, are rarely printed. The last one that I remember enjoying was Ravnica's Master Warcraft. To be honest, if you want to try random effects involving mysterious monsters of mystery, go with Illusionary Mask. I've been playing Limited for a long time, and while I never enjoy playing fog effects, I frequently do as a 22nd or 23rd card. Voiding an enemy attack is a historically powerful effect in Limited, though in Constructed it usually only gets used as part of a defensive combo that draws a lot of cards. Fog effects also get printed in white, occasionally in black, and have also been put on creatures, and it can get recycled. Sometimes they tap down attackers for another turn. Now, fog effects drive aggro players crazy, and while I hate playing them myself, I'd just rather wrath the board away, but I'm glad that fog effects exist in Magic. Another card representing the power of nature is Hurricane. This spell does direct damage to both players and flying creatures. Wizards has repeatedly said that green getting direct damage makes them feel uncomfortable, and Hurricane, yeah, it's true. Hurricane brought many matches to a draw, another outcome that Wizards does not particularly like. Fire Spouts, Savage Twister, and spot removal cards like Plummet all owe a nod to Hurricane. Just as Dodongo dislikes smoke, green dislikes flyers. Speaking of direct damage, as the creature color, green got the feedback type aura Wanderlust. This card's wording in Alpha and Beta was especially confusing. Which upkeep are we talking about? Eventually, Revise clarified this, saying that it was only during the creature's controller's upkeep. Green's color hosers are bluntly powerful. Life Force, mirrored in black by Death Grip, is grossly powerful and forces block mages to play multiple spells in a turn if they ever want to get back in the game. Life Force is slow, but incredibly powerful. Also, an old Konami shooter. Tsunami, on the other hand, just nukes blue decks. Ugh. Just looking at this card makes me feel nervous. Yeah, I'm a blue mage at heart. Natural Selection is the first Magic card allowing you to scry, looking at the top 3 cards of either your or an opponent's library. Unlike Scry, you can either reorder the cards or shuffle the library. Now, Wizards reprinted a reusable version with Tempest Merry Guile, allowing you to do the same thing repeatedly for the same mana cost, with the restriction that you can only look at your own library. There's also Legends Sylvan Library, which lets you pay life to actually draw the cards you look at, but that's a much more powerful effect and hard to compare to Natural Selection. Green's power over life is so potent, it can animate things. Living Artifacts let you store lost life in an artifact, replenishing it over time. You could store it on yours or your opponent's artifact. This underwhelming effect later got an upgrade with Mirrodin's Sun Droplets, giving you the effect and the artifact in a single card. Living Lands turned all your forests into creatures. While this left green mages especially vulnerable to Wrath of God, it did allow players to chump or swarm for wins. Many spells since then have allowed green mages to use their lands directly to attack for lethal. The one that's probably seen the most tournament play is Fifth Dawn's Rude Awakening, which lets you attack with all your lands that turn. Well, except for the ones with Summoning Sickness. Green recycles, so it gets regrowth. Regrowth was incredibly powerful in 93 because it could go get any restricted spell like Time Walk or Wheel of Fortune and let you use it again. Or it could work as a Raise Dead and just let you bring your best creature back into the fray. Now there are many variants on this spell, but I'd say my favorite is Eternal Witness. Getting a 2/1 body on top of this effect is astonishing card advantage. As I discussed in the Red video, mana ramp decks were a popular strategy in the early days of Magic. Stream of Life was never played as much as Fireball or Disintegrate, but it was the best life gain spell in ABU. Tranquility was a precursor to Naturalize in that it destroyed all enchantments. Today this ability usually resides in white, which gets mass removal, while green gets the spot removal. And so the color of green is concluded. In terms of ferocity and creature quality, I felt that it came up short in comparison to red. Green was the least popular color in ABU, in part because its strongest ability, Mana Ramp, was available to everybody through artifacts. Green had big creatures, to be sure, and most of them were affordably costed. But green lacked evasion, and it didn't have the speed advantage and size that makes it the hit color that it is today. It took many years for Wizards to fix green to the point where it was playable. Even when the creation of the Type 2 format and the removal of the restricted Moxen happened, green still was relegated to a support color, as mages of the other four colors could get access to green's ramp by playing the dual lands. Going forward all the way to Tempest Block, green was the least popular color. And I honestly don't think green was equal to the other four colors until Invasion Block. And that's a problem, and I think it's the biggest problem in Magic's early history. 7 years of inferiority complex was a hell of a hurdle. We'll get to discussing this more in the set wrap-up. Thanks for watching. Next week, we're tackling the brown goodness of ABU's artifacts. If you enjoyed this video, like and share this video, subscribe and follow me on Twitter. This is Eli Kaplan for Ancestral Recall, signing off. Good games and good luck.